Hey guys, hope you're having an amazing day today. My name is Steve. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to something called ULEZ, or Ultra Low Emission Zones. I really don't know too much about this topic, but I've had quite a few people recommend that I check this out. All I really know about this is that it has something to do with vehicle emissions in the London area, and I've heard that they are potentially going to expand whatever this is outside of the London area as well. It seems like this is a very, very controversial topic. A lot of people seem to not be very happy with this. And so I thought it was about time that I kind of dive in and learn about what this is and, see what this is that the majority of people, from what I understand, I've been told this at least, that the majority of people in the UK and specifically in the London area aren't happy with ULEZ, whatever this is exactly. Like I said, I know it has something to do with vehicle emissions or limiting their vehicle emissions or something like this, but I'm not exactly sure what all is going on with this or what the details are surrounding the ultra low emission zones. But based off of, ultra low emission zones, it's kind of self-explanatory that these are zones that they are trying to make very low emissions. So I could see how this could potentially be an issue with quite a few drivers, even though I don't exactly know all the details. But anyways, guys, enough of my rambling. Let's go ahead and dive in and learn about ULEZ.
Scam, sham and extortion on the motorists.
The ULEZ is for everyone. Everyone benefits from cleaner air.
I think it's a lot of this clean air zone.
It's a money grab, nothing more, nothing less.
Ultra low emission zones. Love them or hate them. It seems like suddenly everyone is talking about them.
See, we mentioned ULEZ.
ULEZ, the ultra low emission zone.
The idea behind the zones is to improve air quality in cities through a daily charge on the drivers of the most polluting vehicles. But what was once a charge for entering the most central urban locations is being introduced to more and more areas.
So basically, not everyone has to pay this ULEZ fee. It's only on the vehicles that produce the most emissions. Is that correct? So if you had an electric vehicle or maybe a much newer vehicle that may produce less emissions, you either don't have to pay this fee at all or the fee is very limited. That's what this sounds like. And so if you had an older vehicle that produced more emissions, you're more likely to have this fee when you enter whatever ultra low emission zones there are. Supposedly, I think it's just in the center of London, maybe a little bit farther out than just the center, but I'm not 100% sure. I know this is so far, I believe, it's just in the London area. Is that correct? But I've heard that they're working on expanding this or something, or they're possibly going to. All right, so my first impression is that this could potentially affect lower income people more than higher income people, because lower income people are less likely to be able to afford newer cars that produce less emissions than, higher income people are able to. But I'm not 100% sure if I've got all this correct, so let's just continue.
And London's ULEZ expansion to include 5 million more people has already been blamed for Labour's by-election defeat in Uxbridge.
I don't think there's any doubt that ULEZ was the reason that we lost.
With politicians from both sides softening their stance, and with open contempt for the schemes in some areas, what is the future for ULEZ and clean air zones, and for Britain's lungs? Wallington in Sutton is part of London's ULEZ expansion, which comes into force at the end of August, and some locals are not happy about it.
All right, so we've obviously reached the end of August. Has it gone into effect in that area yet?
Stop the ULEZ! Get Khan out!
This protest is one of several being held around London after last week's High Court decision that the ULEZ expansion is legal and will now go ahead as planned.
We need to save our country from dystopia.
The Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has become the poster boy for ULEZ. But as he doubles down on the policy, the party's national leader Keir Starmer has taken a step back over fears of losing London voters.
I'll never vote Labour after this. Never ever. All the Lib Dems, they're just as bad, all the Greens.
But to other protesters, ULEZ is nothing.
I don't quite understand all the different political parties you guys have in the UK. I've heard of Labour, Green, the Dems. I believe you have a party called the Democrats, right? I'm not 100% sure. I think that's what he meant by the Dems. But Labour and Greens, I've definitely heard of them. What is it? Tories, I think, is another one. I know you have quite a few of them. You know, here in the U.S., there's generally only two main parties, and then we have some smaller parties that generally never win any elections. Unfortunately, I'd love to see some of the third parties win, but that's a topic for a different video. But I need to look into your political parties because I have no idea who's who or any of that. So definitely need to learn about that.
To do with politics.
So I do have a car, yes. It means freedom, basically. It is my legs, that's what it is, because I cannot walk, I cannot cycle. Disabled people like myself live a difficult existence as it is. It's almost like they're trying to make it that much harder for us. Why are they doing that? I thought it was all about inclusivity. Well, this is anything but, isn't it, really? We all want clean air, but there's ways of dealing with it. This isn't it.
I have actually upgraded my van, but it's cost me, and of course I'm in debt for the next 5 years due to it. I was hoping to be able to retire, but obviously I can't now because I'm going to have to pay the loan off.
I'm semi-retired. I still have to work part-time in this cost of living crisis. £12.50 is going to be a killer to me.
Hold on. Did he say £12.50? Okay. Is he talking about how much it actually costs to enter one of these zones or something like that, to enter into the ultra low emission zones in London? Is it £12.50 just to enter? Is it? Okay, I'm so confused on this because I'm not sure, like, how do they know what vehicles to charge and not to charge? And like £12.50, dude, if that's what he's talking about, that is insane. I got to hear that again. That's a lot of money if that's what he's talking about.
Killer to me.
Sadiq Khan says he's listening.
Killer to me. In this cost of living crisis, £12.50 is going to be a killer to me.
Wow.
Sadiq Khan says he's listening to the concerns and has announced an expansion of the scrappage scheme in London.
There's still £6 million left in the scrappage scheme. I'm announcing today a further £50 million, but also announcing today that every single Londoner who's got a non-compliant vehicle will receive support.
That is awesome, man. Yeah, and you are ruling. That is brilliant. That's a proper Harley Davidson, that is.
Motoring YouTuber Shazad Sheikh, who calls himself the Brown Car Guy, has attended anti-ULEZ protests all over London.
Kind of callous and cruel.
Trying to read some of this.
People, oh, just scrap your car, or just sell your car, or just get another car. People are in anguish about having to get rid of their pride and joys. And
what was that?
Very soon, it feels like we're not going to be able to drive and enjoy our cars the way that we currently are. And I think that to an extent, it feels like there's a little bit of a war on motorists going on right now.
But elsewhere in outer London, the ULEZ expansion couldn't come soon enough for some campaigners.
Where it is going to make a difference, it's busy roads like this, and this road has my son's school on it, 2 primary schools and a secondary school.
Rosa lives near a main road in Ealing, and her 5-year-old son has been frequently hospitalised with severe asthma.
He's needed to be rushed to A&E 27 times because he can't breathe properly. He's had to be rushed to resus, and it's been really, really critical. And we know that his asthma is made worse by air pollution, we've been told by the doctors. And you just sort of feel slightly helpless, really, and a bad parent, I guess. He's so little, and it's so frightening for him. And it's such a basic right to be able to breathe properly, and he's not able to do that.
London's ULEZ has been making all the headlines recently. But in England, the controversy is nationwide. There are also clean air zones in Portsmouth, Bath, Bristol, Birmingham, Sheffield, and Tyneside.
Oh, wow. Okay, I thought this was just a London thing. So are these areas the same thing as ULEZ? Like, for example, Bath, Portsmouth, Bristol, Birmingham, Sheffield, Tyneside. Are these the exact same thing? Do you have to pay to enter these areas, or is this something completely different? Because I just assumed this was London. I can understand a mother's, a mother feeling really, really helpless and sad for a child that has asthma. I'm the type of person that looks, from the middle to both sides, and I can see the pros and cons to everything. But I'm very hesitant to give power to the government to basically dictate what cars someone can drive. Obviously, if a car is unsafe, that's a completely different thing than what we're talking about here. This is talking about making people pay what sounds like a lot of money if they have basically an older car. Because, older cars are generally going to produce more emissions than a newer car or an electric vehicle does. But so I think the little bit I know about this, I can see this affecting lower income people quite a bit. People who don't have the money to go out here and buy a new car, but they have to get to work. And so they may have to come into London. And if they literally had to pay, if it's true, they had to pay £12.50 to just enter London to go to work, that could really start being a big deal to certain people. I mean, that'd be, maybe a few $100s a month or something like that. Or, people that may deliver into London or things like that. I can see how this could definitely affect some people and why it seems like a lot of people are not very happy with this. But I can also, at the same time, I can see how, some people with health issues, you have a child with asthma, I have a 5-year-old, and, you want what's best for your child. And I can understand her point of view, but it's like, when do you allow the government to basically have so much power over your lives, and where do you limit that? It's like, it's always like that. Given the government power over your lives is something you have to be very careful with, because once you give government power, they never release that power back to you. They will always control you in that area because they're very likely to relinquish that power. So you got to be very careful with that, but let's continue.
Manchester was all set to roll out its own CAS last year, but it's been placed under review after a huge backlash. And in Bradford, where the zone only affects commercial vehicles, many taxi drivers believe they are being unfairly impacted.
Oh,
I think it's a lot of what's going on with Bradford Council and its clear air zone. It's out of order. Basically, £13 putting in their pocket before we start.
£13.
It's the cost of living. It's very hard out here for us taxi drivers.
Technically, it's a good idea because we need to protect the environment. But I think the way it was implemented, they gave us very short time to change our cars.
Whenever you visit a clean air zone, it isn't hard to find strong opinions on either side of the fence. But amid all the firmly held beliefs, it's easy to lose sight of the science that oppose these measures.
We've seen that if you implement clean air zones, it dramatically reduces the air pollution.
Dr. Catherine Hickman is a GP and the respiratory lead for West Yorkshire.
As we've seen in Bradford, they are inextricably linked, high air pollution and higher levels of A&E attendances and or GP appointments.
For now, London's expansion is still coming on the 29th of August, leaving around 700,000 cars in the city non-compliant. So as the next election looms, what does ULEZ mean for the green policies of both major parties?
Wow.
And what next for Britain's toxic air?
All right, guys, this was interesting. I think I'm going to go and check out another video in just a moment. Like I was saying, I look at both sides of a situation, and I can see both sides. I can obviously see that, one side, you want cleaner air. I think everybody wants cleaner air. It's just, how much control do you give the government in order to get to that place? Over time, the emissions are going to come down on their own. They already are. Do you know how much cleaner our air is, at least in America? I don't know about the UK, but our air is so much cleaner now than it was in the 70s or 80s or even 90s. As technology advances, things automatically, things like cleaner vehicles automatically become cheaper, and more people eventually buy into that. I can see both sides. It's one of those things. It's just like, it's just I don't really enjoy giving the government more control, though. I don't, because generally speaking, I have very rarely seen times where when you give the government more control, things end up being better for the individual. Some people do well when you give the government more control. Generally speaking, that's usually people that do tend to have more money because they have the ability to, kind of offset, and they have the ability to invest in new vehicles in this case, or, invest in their business more, or whatever it may be. They have the ability to just kind of be able to roll with the punches a little more than people who are, low income, just working class in general. So it's just one of those things that, I think this will depend on your lifestyle, whether you agree with it or not. Generally speaking, it'll depend on, how affected you are by it one way or the other. If you're like the woman who has a kid with asthma and you feel like the car pollution is affecting your child's health, you're obviously going to be on the side of improving, doing whatever you can to see an improvement in your child. I have a 5-year-old. I can understand that point of view. But if you're someone who realizes that, like, you've got to go into London for work or whatever it may be, and you're like, I don't have £12.50 to pay out every day because I'm just barely getting by, and I definitely don't have the money to buy a more expensive vehicle, you're obviously not going to be okay or happy with these ultra low emission zones. And so I can understand both sides, and it's just one of those things. But in the end, I don't really enjoy the aspect of giving the government more power. It just generally doesn't work out for the people. But I want to learn a little bit more about this guy, so I'm going to jump over to another video. All right, guys, this video is about the ULEZ expansion. Why is it so controversial? The video we just watched said the ULEZ expansion was supposed to take place on August 29th, if I'm not mistaken. And so this video is about a month old. And so I'm thinking that it looks like the expansion did go through, and it means that roughly 5 million more people are now having to pay these ULEZ fees or what have you. I'm still not quite understanding exactly how do they know what cars to charge these fees to. I don't quite understand it. Is it based off of the age of the vehicle, or how exactly does that work? Please let me know in the comments section, because I'm not sure if this video is going to tell me how that's charged to different vehicles or not charged the other vehicles. I have no idea. But anyways, guys, I thought this would be an interesting short video to check out to kind of see if we could understand a little bit more about what's going on here with the ULEZ, and specifically the ULEZ expansion in this case.
For us.
Building company owner Michael Gibbs is based just a few streets outside the capital's newly expanded ultra-low emission zone.
Okay, newly expanded, so it did go through.
ULEZ. But he and his team frequently cross the boundary line for work. To avoid the hassle of a daily £12.50 charge per diesel van, he switched them for less polluting ones. Even though as a resident of Dartford and not Greater London, he didn't qualify for any help.
I think it's an absolute joke, to be honest with you. We work for domestic people, and they're struggling as it is. So now we've took the gamble, we've brought these vehicles, and at the end of the day, it might not work out for us because their mortgages are going up, they can't afford normal day-to-day stuff.
And are you going to have to pass on some of the costs you've incurred to your customers as part of your pricing?
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's going to affect the pricing, of course. But there's nothing I could really do about it.
The ULEZ journey has not been a smooth one.
Some 9 million people now live inside London's ultra-low emission zone,
Wow.
the largest of its kind in the world. The hope was to deal with the twin challenges of air pollution and global warming, but it has been a contentious policy right from the very beginning.
What I don't understand about this is that you guys have a really great public transportation system going on. You have the London Underground, you have a great bus system. To me, I know that the London Underground supposedly, I don't know for a fact, but I think I remember seeing that had a lot of emissions underground. I remember people saying it was a very polluted area, very bad air in the London Underground. Is that correct? And if so, why wouldn't they invest in fixing that issue and maybe invest in better, less polluting buses or something like that? Maybe they have, I don't know. But if they haven't, that seems like the best place to start, because when it comes to this, you're basically going to pass on these new fees to a lot of people that really are the least likely to be able to truly afford them. Like I said, it's going to be the people who don't have the ability to get these, lower emitting vehicles. They're just, it's going to be the people who are working paycheck to paycheck that are most likely not going to be able to afford this type of stuff. And then they're stuck if they've got to come into London paying that £12.50 every day. And then you got a business, for example, that they live very close to that line. And so they were probably having to go in there maybe multiple times per day with multiple vehicles, and that would add up quick. So they're like, well, we need to go ahead and invest in, vehicles that will help us save money on this. And ultimately, we're going to have to pass that on to the customer. I think that's what a lot of people don't really think about, is the fact when you allow government to start controlling things like this, what you do is over time, this is definitely going to increase the cost of living for everybody, because it's not just the people having to now buy, more expensive vehicles before they were ready to, and now they got to go into debt. But it's also the customers of all these different, services that are going to have to pay a bigger fee on, whether it's construction or, buying food, because food is going to be trucked into these locations. So, I can look at both sides, but it's definitely going to start costing everybody more over time, because it's going to hit every business and every individual, really. It's just one of those things, man. What do you say?
Along the way, protest groups, legal challenges and by-election defeats have all threatened the expansion plans. Mayor Sadiq Khan taking a political beating.
Is it time to admit that you misjudged the scale of the opposition to your flagship policy?
I've been clear from the start. The decision to expand the ultra-low emission zone was always a difficult one, but I think it's a vital one for me to make, and the right one. And that's because I've seen the consequences of air pollution. I can't ignore that in this great city of ours, there's around 4,000 premature deaths a year.
Oh, yes. For Rosamond Kissy Deborah, whose daughter Ella died as a result of air pollution, the fight has been worth it.
I hope before my time is up, we will be where the Scandinavian countries are. There will be no more asthma deaths. And people might say that's being ambitious, but if Finland can do it, Sweden can do it, Norway can do it, and we've done it during the pandemic, I know we can do it.
Despite the noble aims, ULEZ tensions remain, a policy clashing with people's tolerance for change and with consequences beyond London's borders.
All right, guys. That just gave me a little bit more of a perspective on this. Like I said, this is one of those topics that it's really hard, because as someone who likes to look at both sides, I see what both sides are saying. This is going to be financially hard for a lot of people to cover, because they need a vehicle to get to work, for example, to get into London, to get into this ultra low emission zone. Or businesses need to go in and out here all day, and they have to get new vehicle, and people don't have the ability to afford that. Not everybody. And but then there's the people who are saying that there are a lot of people that suffer because of asthma and other pollution related diseases, and you got to look at those people as well. And it's like, what do you say? I mean, like, both groups have points that you can appreciate. But at the end of the day, what does the majority want? And I feel like that's what the mayor should be doing. What does the majority want? Does the majority support this? Does the majority don't support this? It's that simple. From what I understand, it seems like the majority don't generally support this, but I don't know for sure. Everything that I've heard from recommendations, from people that have said things about this in the comments, to what I'm seeing on these videos, what I'm seeing in thumbnails. It seems like overwhelmingly people don't generally support this. So, it's kind of like in that case, he's going against the will of the people. But I definitely prefer to improve things without having to force people into doing things. Cars, they get better and better and better when it comes to emissions every year. And so eventually, and not the not too distant future, it's just going to happen because it's going to get to the point that people are going to want these vehicles because they're going to be at the same price or lower than the current vehicles that emit more pollution. And so as people need new cars, they're automatically going to be buying these. We should wait for the customer to be able to move in these better directions because they will be able to do so in the near future. Every year, pollution gets better and better and better. And so at least it is in the US. It's gotten better and better and better as times went on. And so I just think that, things are improving. I'm not sure you need government force in order to improve things in this way. But anyways, guys, I thought this was interesting. Please let me know what you think about the topic of ULEZ or the ULEZ expansion in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me on my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Till next time, guys. Peace.